gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
You love the feeling of being renewed. To stay beautiful every single day. To breathe just like we do. Because you are truly delicate. Protecting the ones who've been with us through the years. With LANKA'S, the only wood coating that truly protects you. LANKA'S wood coatings from JAT.
This is LMDtv. I'm Fazmina Imamudeen. Hello, Mr. Gajendran. I welcome you to the show.
Yes, Fazmina. Thank you.
The government has announced tax increases, but we have not yet seen them being implemented. Is there a timeline for this? Or perhaps in the budget that will be presented in August?
Yeah, exactly, Fazmina. It was a policy pronouncement that came from, I think, the Prime Minister's office. Some of the proposals have to be presented. It will be presented in the interim budget in August. And then it has to go through the parliamentary debate and legislative process, and it will get enacted. So until then, these proposals are not in effect in law. But there are certain proposals like the VAT, the rate increase in VAT to 12%, that was done and could be done and was done through a gazette notification, will be subsequently ratified by Parliament within a period of 3 months. So other proposals, most of them have to go through the legislative process. So that will take time. August has been announced as the month for the interim budget.
Given the pressing need to increase state revenue through taxes, why isn't there a sense of urgency to switch back to the payee and withholding tax systems?
No, exactly. It has been in what has been proposed in the policy statement, which will be given effect to in the interim budget. And once passed in Parliament, the PAY is back. PAY is an ubiquitous form of tax found everywhere. The PAY is going to come back, and withholding taxes for interest and dividends and rent and service payments are back. And in the case of interest and dividend, the withholding tax will be the final tax. We call it the final withholding tax under the new act. So it is basically we are going back to pre-2019 status quo. So interest will be subject to a 5% final withholding tax, and dividends subject to 14% final withholding tax. Like before, all these taxes are slashed in somewhere in January 2020.
In comparison to the slightly higher levels that we experienced in 2020, our tax revenues fell to $6.5 billion last year. Where is the increase in tax revenue going to come from?
No, I think 2018 and 19 was our highest revenue what we raised. It was almost 2 trillion rupees. In 2020, with these changes in the budget proposal, in the changes in the slashing of the tax rates and the tax base being enhanced, we lost about 550 billion rupees in tax. So basically, when we go back to 2019 tax status quo, we are bound to recoup the 550 billion, and plus what is going to come through inflationary pressures, because the inflationary pressures, you will get more money in nominal terms, though it may not be in real terms. But at the same time, you may not realize it's the full potential of the revised tax proposals, because with the multiple crises that Sri Lanka being faced, most of the businesses have come to a grinding halt, particularly because the lack of fuel, petrol and diesel. It's a crippling blow. So their business activity may not be as normal. And you can see, you don't see even vehicles on the roads, and there is no movement of traffic. So goods cannot move. So revenues are being proposed, but we have to see whether we can have the economic activities, the normal markets functions normally, for us to get back to some sense of sensible tax, about 12.5% to 13% in 2019, which came down to about 8% after the taxes were slashed.
So what are your thoughts on how to strike a better balance between indirect and direct taxation?
This has been a perennial problem. Policies made that basically the indirect tax to direct tax is 80 to 20%. That is, indirect is 80% and direct is only 20. There was a pronouncement made in, I think, in 2015 that we are going to, the objective is to shift the balance to 60 to 40%. That is indirect tax to 60% and direct tax to 40%. It has failed because there is a substantial erosion of the tax base, mainly because of passive action and inefficiencies on the side of revenue administration. And when it comes to, when there is excessive focus on indirect taxes, which is impose and collect, the poorer segment of the society, marginalized society, gets affected because they are taxed more. And basically, with high indirect tax, the marginal propensity to consume is severely impaired by the less privileged people. And particularly when income drops or value of their income drops, there are greater proportions consumed in the form of tax, which is not a ideal situation for social stability and macroeconomic stability.
The backlog of tax files has dropped to alarming proportions. Why is tax evasion still a norm? And why isn't the professional community addressing this issue? Can you suggest any solutions?
The main reason for the tax files to drop drastically, as mentioned in the statement, is because of the tax base was increased and tax rates were slashed and withholding taxes were abolished. Apart from that, erosion of the tax base because of evasion is a perennial problem. And one way that could have been tackled, the revenue administration system was it was implemented as envisaged. That didn't go through because of pressures from trade unions with the Department of Inland Revenue, and that has been a problem. Professionals have been, and the chambers have been, has been articulating repeatedly that evasion has to be curbed. Otherwise, what happens? The people who are in the tax net are repeatedly taxed and harassed. So this is an issue that has to be tackled, and we have been successful in the past for so many years.
If the proposed bailout goes through as planned, the IMF is apparently going to advocate for the elimination of subsidies. If this is the case, how can the disadvantaged and the underprivileged be protected?
No, it's a very good question. But the new approach of the IMF, if you see what has been pronounced by the IMF in their deliberation with Sri Lanka, the first point that they have raised is the vulnerable people, the marginalized people has to be targeted and they should be given relief. Many proponents, including IMF, of the view subsidies are not the answers, because subsidies you give for a product where you sell below the price it should be sold, what happens is everyone is going to be benefited. Now, for example, our petrol and diesel sold at subsidized prices. It's only now we are coming back to market rates. When it was done, not only the poor people, the marginalized people, people who go by three-wheelers or motorcycles got the benefit. But people who are affluent people who have the capacity to pay the larger amount of tax also benefited. But on the program of the IMF and also what has been pronounced by many proponents to help the marginalized people, it is to give cash direct subsidies. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, dealing with cash has been always a huge challenge, and because of malpractice and corruption. So it has to, you can go back to subsidies. If you want to give, definitely the first condition for IMF support is that they should reach, the government, the country should reach the less privileged people, the poorer segment of the people on a direct basis, like cash transfers and direct relief to them.
What steps can be taken to ensure those who are vulnerable are protected from the increase in VAT and other indirect taxes?
Yeah, that is another huge question which has to be focused. When we have one single rate of tax, to my mind, there should be a multi-rate system, because an unequal society should have an unequal form of tax. There should be a standard rate, there should be a luxury rate, and should be a reduced rate for some of the essentials. And also, though people are saying that they argue against exemptions, some of the basic goods, the given goods, where people, those goods are basic requirements for those people to enjoy a minimum quality of life, should go to them without any taxes. So exemption is one, and a reduced rate is also another option. But that is not has been suggested in the interim budget. Otherwise, there will be problems when taxes are imposed and increased. You can see the prices going at a faster rate than the taxes, the rate of increase in the tax. As you see, when in 2020, when the prices are reduced, none of the products prices came down. But once the taxes are increased, automatically the prices will go up. So this is a question that they have to focus. You can't have a standard rate to deal with the society, which varies in their capacity to earn and live. So the products needed by the less privileged people has to reach them virtually without no tax or at a very low rate of tax.
So what are your thoughts on the one-time surcharge tax of 25% that will be applied to businesses in 2020 and 2021 with a taxable income of 2 billion rupees or more?
No, this is a tax, though the large corporates who have a great influence of voice and they have ability to influence policymakers may have different, sometimes different and rightful and legitimate arguments, judicious argument to say this is not the way forward. But on the capacity, on the principle of capacity to pay, that was a very judicious decision, because the people who have a higher amount of income have to bear the large amount of tax. But at the same time, these tax monies that is collected has to be put into good, effective use and not to be used for malpractice and corruption, where Sri Lanka has been a victim of it. So the higher rates of tax on a higher levels of income is naturally justified, because they have a greater capacity to pay. So there is no harm, but all those tax monies had to be put into good use. And if you see, we are in a total mess. One of the reasons, because our budget is not efficient, because our expenditure far exceeds the revenue. And some of the expenditures like salaries and interest is almost 1 trillion under each heading. And if you see the defense expenditure is about 375 billion to 400 billion, which is far more than the education budget and the health budget put together. So we have all got it mixed up. So these things have to be corrected. Otherwise, we are already, it's a race to the bottom if he has to be arrested.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gajendran. You shed light on how broad tax cuts resulted in credit rating downgrade, causing Sri Lanka to become estranged from international financial markets, and how that has contributed to the economic crisis and what can be done to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.